First at 5, a desperate plea from the FBI for information about an Oregon man suspected of kidnapping a woman and locking her up in a makeshift cell. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. We can tell you the woman who survived this ordeal managed to escape. The suspect is now behind bars, though authorities tell us they fear there could be more victims, and they are casting a wide net. Let's get to Mike Benner in the newsroom. Mike, the details here are really horrific. First of all, how is the victim in this case doing?
Well, David, at a press conference today, investigators described her as strong and courageous. They say she is physically okay, but mentally, you have to think she has a long road ahead of her, and here is why. Photos provided by federal agents show the cinder block cell the woman was locked up in for several hours. This makeshift cell was in the garage of a Klamath Falls home. The woman says she met her captor, identified as Nagasi Zuberi, when he came to Seattle on July 15th and solicited her for sex. Court documents allege that Zuberi then told the woman he was an undercover police officer. He pointed a taser at her, put her in handcuffs and leg irons, then drove her from Seattle to Klamath Falls, sexually assaulting her along the way. Authorities say Zuberi locked the woman in that cell where she spent several hours before making a daring escape.
Because of her ability and her survival mindset, this was a screen door. She punched it several times to break the welds, ripped the screen down, and she crawled through a small space to get out of that place because she knew something bad was going to happen to her.
Within hours of the woman's escape, Zuberi was tracked down and arrested in Nevada, one of the 10 states he's lived in over the last decade. Since his arrest, detectives have tied Zuberi to 3 more sexual assaults in 3 of those states, but they fear there could be even more victims. Police want you to know Nagasi Zuberi has some aliases, including Sakima Zuberi, Justin Haichi, and Justin Kawazi. He is currently in custody in Nevada, but should be back in Oregon to answer to interstate kidnapping charges in the coming weeks. If convicted, he could face up to life in prison. Laurel?
Well, thank goodness the victim in this case escaped. What a brave woman. Thank you, Mike. Developing right now, Portland police are asking for the public's help to find the man accused in what appears to be a random attack. It happened by a Mac station downtown. We're about to show you surveillance video of the incident, and a warning, it may be difficult to watch. The victim was walking when the attacker throws a metal bottle at her from close distance. The impact knocked her unconscious. This happened last Friday night, just before 11, by Southwest 17th and Yamhill near Providence Park. Now here is a closer look at the suspect. He's described as a white man in his 20s or 30s, last seen wearing black clothing with a logo on the shirt and carrying a backpack. Anyone with information should contact Portland police.
To an update now in Washington on the case of a Portland woman found dead in Klickitat County last October. For the first time, the county sheriff, Bob Songer, has publicly addressed this case amidst concerns from the victim's family that the case had been moved from an active homicide investigation to inactive without, they say, explanation. Songer now says the coroner's report determined 31-year-old Hannah Walker's death was a drowning with no indication of a homicide. But Walker's family is now pushing back. According to a letter circulated by family attorneys, Walker had been staying with a man and her body was found in a shallow creek not far from his vacation home. They say the sheriff also initially seemed to think Walker's death was suspicious. We have a more in-depth history of this case. It's up right now on KGW.com. Let's get to a significant step forward in our homeless crisis now, with Portland finally opening its first sanctioned village for people living in RVs. It is the Sunderland RV Safe Park in Northeast Portland, though as Blair Best found out, the barriers to getting in are now turning many people away.
A picture of neglect lines a mile of Northeast 33rd Drive. Homeless people look to those like Bruce Arnold for help.
We bring out both love and food for our friends living along the streets here. That's the word we use for people living outdoors, is our friends who live outdoors.
He's been doing this as part of Home PDX Church for years.
I think the number one need on the street is someone to look you in the eyes and say you're worth something.
Like Bruce, city outreach crews have been targeting this street ahead of the opening of the first city-sanctioned RV park for homeless people. It's part of the city's Safe for Us Village program and opened in July. It can hold 55 vehicles. So far, 9 RVs have moved in. More are expected later this week, though word on the street isn't great.
I call it jail. Basically what it is.
Andrew was offered a spot in the park, but says no one followed up. So if you were to be offered a spot again, would you move in?
I don't know, truly. I hear it will help you get housing. That's the only reason why I might do it.
When you look down Northeast 33rd Drive, you would think that all of these trailers and RVs would be eligible to move into the Safe for Us Park. However, the RV or trailer has to be fully functional in order to move into the park, which is a big barrier for people out here. The city's Safe for Us Village team tells KGW they may be able to tow RVs and trailers on a case-by-case basis, but people need to have some form of proof of the right to use the vehicle and a valid driver's license.
I can say that none of these RVs are probably going to go in there.
And most of these are abandoned for places, people picked them up on the side of the road. They were left by somebody else.
Even though Ralph's RV runs, he still won't move in if given the chance.
It's a controlled environment. They gotta let everybody in there. You can't put a label on people.
Nobody wants to go in there because of the rules. No one wants to be told what to do like that.
The Salvation Army runs the site. They were unavailable to talk with KGW on camera Wednesday, but their spokesperson said they weren't sure if they had a list of rules. KGW is planning to meet with them next week to find some clarity. In Northeast Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
New and continuing coverage here at 5 o'clock. An update on the Washington County Sheriff's deputy shot a week ago while serving an eviction notice in Tualatin. The Sheriff's Office reporting Charles Doze was shot a total of 7 times, including twice in the head. He's lost his left eye and several teeth and has injuries to both his arms. But despite the extensive injuries, his family feels like each day comes with a new miracle, a new bit of progress. We spoke with his daughter, Kayla, this afternoon.
It's going to take a long time for this to heal. And he has like a brace up here and most of his teeth removed. So I've never seen my dad in this kind of condition. He's like obviously a cop, so he's a tough guy and hides a lot of his pain. So it's been a hard road so far.
Kayla explained the swelling's gone down around Deputy Doze's head, which doctors take as a good sign. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll hear his message to his family as they arrived at the hospital and learn more about his recovery.
Well, physicians at Providence St. Vincent Medical Center have overwhelmingly voted to unionize, saying they are overworked and should be compensated for overtime. Thomas Schultz joins us from outside the hospital. Thomas, doctors are also pointing to a ripple effect, they say, of another shortage. Nurses, what do we know?
Yeah, David, they are. They say that physicians, there's only about one of them on each floor, but when there's a nursing shortage, physicians are generally the ones who pick up those roles as well. Now, physicians I spoke with today who have worked in the Providence Network for 25 years say they have more patients now than they've ever had before. Often they stay hours longer than their 12-hour shift, continuing to care for patients and finishing up on paperwork. Sometimes they don't even have time for a lunch break. This comes after 1,800 nurses went on strike at a couple of different Providence hospitals. Recently, 87% of St. Vincent hospitalists voted to unionize. They say they are looking for better staffing for physicians and for the nurses. They also want to be compensated for extra hours worked and have physicians more involved in the decision-making process. Often there's only one hospitalist on each floor. One solution that physicians say could help is adding another physician to each floor, but Fox says Providence hasn't shown a willingness to add that extra staff yet.
Now that the pandemic has lightened up significantly, we thought things would get better, but they haven't. We're still working under very difficult conditions, and I would say not only.
Now, this isn't just a problem at Portland St. Vincent. A recent study by the American Medical Association found that 1 in 5 physicians plans to leave the profession in the next 2 years. And that's not all. There's also another study they put out that says between a third to half of all physicians and nurses they interviewed also plan to cut back their hours as well. David, Laurel.
Thomas Schultz reporting there. Thank you, Thomas. Let's get to news of another data breach, in this case one that compromised personal details of 1.7 million Oregon Health Plan members. The Oregon Health Authority says in late May or early June, hackers accessed names, birth dates, social security numbers, addresses, and member and plan IDs. In this case, it appears they exploited the same software involved in that global cyber attack that impacted the Oregon DMV. Members are urged to monitor their credit reports. OHA says those impacted will be contacted by regular first-class mail, not phone or email.
The man who's accused of crashing into a car while under the influence and killing an 11-year-old boy will be back in court next month. Investigators say 29-year-old Dupree Smith T-boned another car last month. 11-year-old Ryan Ambrose was in the car that was hit and died at the hospital. Police say Smith was going more than 80 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. His attorney says he was rushing to the hospital after getting shot 3 times. Yesterday, Smith pleaded not guilty to manslaughter, DUI, and reckless driving charges. Ambrose's family packed the courtroom, asking the judge to put Smith in jail.
5 years ago, almost to the day, we lost his dad, the same circumstances. And we just don't feel that it's right that somebody who was under the influence was able to be out free on the streets when our little boy is not here anymore.
The judge maintained Smith's conditional release because he's wearing a monitoring bracelet and not drinking.